Welcome back to another episode of the Frustrated CEO podcast. My name is Patrick Lyons. I'm one of your co-hosts. I'm here with my two friends and colleagues and co-hosts, Patsy Feeman and Leb Tannenbaum. Patsy, how are you this morning?
Quite well, thank you.
Good. And Leb, you, sir?
Yes, ready to go.
Good. I did mention morning. We're actually recording a little bit off time for us. So we'll see how each of us is this early. But something tells me it's going to be great because our guest today is Sean Barker. Now, Sean is the CEO at cloudEQ, which is a global cloud solutions provider offering workload migration and cost management. Now, in our next episode, we're actually going to put Sean on the hot seat as cloud solutions industry thought leader. But today in this episode, we want to pick Sean's brain on what it takes to build and lead an award-winning Fortune 100 company. Sean Barker, welcome to the Frustrated CEO podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good to be here, yeah. Okay, so I mentioned that cloudEQ is an award-winning Fortune 100 company, but what do we mean by award-winning? Well, pull up a chair. Because in 2022, cloudEQ won awards for Best Company Culture, Best Company for Diversity, and Best CEO. And this year, in 2023, cloudEQ has won Best Company for Career Growth, Best CEOs for Diversity, Best Company Leadership, Best CEOs for Women, Best Engineering Teams, and Best Company Outlook. And a quick look at, I know there's a lot, right? So I did some research for this. There's a quick look at some data on a website called comparably.com, which is a website where employees can anonymously rate their companies in a number of different areas. So first of all, 94% of cloudEQ employees participated in the survey, which is a very high participation rate. And 95% of those responses were positive. 95% of all responses were positive. So let's take a look at those results. cloudEQ employees gave the company an A+ rating on culture. It was in the top 25% of all companies in gender score, which measures how women rate their overall experience. The top 10% of all companies in diversity score, which measures how minority employees rate their overall experience. And in the top 5% of all companies in the Net Promoter Score, which measures an employee's willingness to encourage others to come work at the company. And Sean, I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know. You scored 95 out of 100 in their assessment of you as their CEO. Now, unfortunately, after going through all of the awards that cloudEQ has won, that's all the time we have for our show today. So we'll see you next time on the front. No, in all seriousness, Sean, we're actually really excited to have you on to highlight the work that you and your team are doing and pick your brain to figure out what our listeners can do. So my first question out of the gate is, has it always been like this?
So, let me just back up real quick. We are not a Fortune 100 company. We serve Fortune 100 companies.
Okay.
That would need to put our revenue into the billions, and we're a smidge shy. To be fair, no, it hasn't always been that way. We're roughly 4 years old, but I come from the tech industry, leading Fortune 500 companies in IT and technology in various industries. So I knew when we kind of put together cloudEQ, we wanted to have a place that we wanted to work, right? And you always want to work with people you know, like, and trust, right? So we wanted to create a culture that embodied that as we went through the process. And we certainly didn't get everything we wanted to get done right out of the gate. So, it's always an evolution as you get to these sorts of things. We put in some stuff early on that we thought would be wonderful, and it didn't work. So we took some of that stuff out, put some stuff in that we thought would, based on feedback from the employee base.
So that leads to a question for me. What did you put in that didn't work that you then took out?
Because we started as a global company, and I've worked in global companies, we were under the assumption that we knew that global companies worked slightly differently, and there are different cultures all over the world. But things that were, important, or we felt were important, were not as important in some of the locations that we are located in. We thought, healthcare is always important to people, but we put in some kind of unique benefits that just aren't available typically in organizations. Say for example, in India, where culture is really driven by the family. It's a very strong family culture. So I think it was last year we put in a long-term incentive. In India, there's no 401k program sort of thing like there is in the US. So we put in a program that says if you've been with us a year and a half, you have a choice. We can put away 5% of your salary, not taking it from you, but us contributing 5% of your salary for every year for 5 years. And at the end of that 5 years, that's your money, and it earns interest and what have you. Or we will provide health insurance for your parents at our cost, right? So some people's parents have unfortunately passed, so they want to choose the long-term incentive, and others have parents who are healthy or not healthy, as the case may be, but maybe lacking insurance. So we thought that was a good adaptation of culture for us, which provides a unique incentive. Other companies do provide healthcare for parents, but it's usually at the employee's expense. We provide it at our expense.
Wow.
And how many different cultures are you operating in? Do you have businesses in?
So it's interesting. We have offices in the U.S., in the U.K., and in India, but we have, for example, we've got people on our staff in the UK from Nigeria, and we've got Canadians, and we've got all different kinds of cultures and people that want different experiences, and we try to figure out what that is and best help them achieve that culture and that experience.
Sean, with all these different cultures and people and the nature of how important the work that your company does to the companies you work with, is there a training component or a way you bring on board people that might be interesting, valuable to our listeners?
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting around the onboarding. For the U.S., for example, we provide training on what the culture is in India and how to best work with people in India. And in India, we provide the culture of how to work with the U.S. and the people in the U.S. So obviously India and the U.K. were a bit closer before the early 1940s or so, but so that culture blends pretty well together. But yeah, we do provide cultural training on how to best work with people all over the world.
That's great.
That's really interesting. And obviously culture has come up a lot in just the first few questions. Sean, the website says culture is everything. Why?
That really refers to the culture of the company. If what we found is if people are happy and feel valued and have a sense of purpose, then not only does the company benefit, the individual benefits, and the clients benefit, right? So people will go the extra mile to deliver something that the client wants or the client needs or the company wants or needs, if they truly feel valued.
How do you give them a sense of purpose? Now I'm curious.
Well, we take people who have lots of industry experience. We bring them to cloudEQ, or we take people straight out of college, bring them to cloudEQ. We provide, like every company, provides training and technical training, business training, leadership training, as we try to let people achieve greater heights, but we also sit down and ask them, what is it that you want to do, right? A lot of companies work with, for example, people in India, and India often gets treated like a factory, where you simply take the work that nobody wants to do and you send it to India, and India does it, for 8 hours a day, and then they go home. And that's not the culture we wanted. So we take our best and brightest and we put them on the phone, engaged in the project directly with the client. And they are the subject matter experts. They are leading the effort and the initiative. We certainly have staff in the US and the UK who will be a part of that. But what's most important is if they feel that sense of purpose and sense of value that they're contributing to the overall process, then that's how you kind of build and instill that culture. The other thing we do is, part of our name is cloudEQ, which may be one of the questions that you're going to lead to. However, I'll segue for you. EQ is emotional quotient, right? Yeah. The ability to understand, empathize, and create solutions for the clients based on their business need and what their goals for their employees also want to achieve. Often, we tell people all the time, we go to a client, we're supporting this particular client, this particular individual who's leading this effort at the client. Our job is to make them successful. If they're successful, they take all the credit for what we do. That's wonderful, because they'll call us tomorrow and they'll hire us again. If we understand their business, that's where we want to be. We want to understand how your business works, what's important to you, what are the key understandings of the KPIs of your particular business. We work with a number of, like I said, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, and some of the KPIs are not what you would think they would be, but they're valuable to them, and that's how they measure internally, and that's what we try to line up to and make sure that they can achieve what their goals are.
So I'm curious. It's almost like yin and yang. You've got a highly technical business and you have a highly, emotional quotient business. It requires both. How do you hire for that full spectrum?
Well, we, as you can imagine, we don't always get it right? We have people that are highly technical, really, really smart people who can do amazing things, but may lack that EQ, if you will. But we partner and pair them with the people who have it, right? Mm-hmm. So whether that be an onshore resource or another offshore resource, but explaining, this is what the customer does. This is what they care about. This is the KPI. This is why this matters. This is why they can sell more widgets, which allows them to employ more people, which allows them to, continue on doing business with what we do. Or we save them money, which allows them to hire more people or drop it to the bottom line and contribute to the stockholder. So it's obviously we deal mostly with public companies, which are managed by the quarter. But even though they're managed by the quarter, as long as they are achieving their quarterly goals and results, they want to do more, they want to be more, they want to innovate, and they want to drive better solutions within their organization.
Great. So it's not necessarily one person that does that whole spectrum. The whole spectrum that needs to be covered, and you have a variety of people that make sure that gets covered. Okay.
Yeah, one of the, at least for us, one of the interesting things is, we talked about women. We won an award for women. We won an award for diversity. Won an award for culture. At least for me, diversity is one of the most important things that we can do. It's actually in our values, which is diversity fuels success. And I truly believe that regardless of who you are or where you are, by having a diverse group of people who advise you, who are a part of the process, who are a part of the mechanism, you gain the ability, the expertise, the knowledge to better empathize with the client, better relate to the client, produce better solutions for the client, and better represent not only your company but the client themselves in that process. So it's critically important to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sean, we've talked in other episodes about conflict, right? About celebrating differences, having that be healthy conflict. I'm envisioning, as you put two people together, one who excels in the technical, and one, I'm assuming everybody excels in the technical, but maybe somebody doesn't excel in the EQ part of it, and so you pair them together. Does that create conflict where you've got two people approaching a client or a task or a project different ways? How do you navigate through that?
Not usually. I mean, we do encourage a healthy debate, right? Healthy debate is good. Differing of opinion and understanding where somebody else is coming from is critically important. We another one of our tenets is respect, right? So you can be as vehemently opposed to a solution as and the antithesis of what somebody else is saying about a particular solution, but you will come at it with respect and understanding and empathy, and then we can have an open and honest dialogue. And there's a, should that fail or break down, there's an escalation path that we go through. The best technical solution usually wins, because we are a technology company. But as long as it's achieved with respect, differences of opinion is really, really healthy in an organization.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Sean, how you mentioned know, like, and trust.
Yep.
How did you build your leadership team? Because I know you had a lot of experienced people on it. And then how does that, filter out to the rest of the organization?
So when we went around to form cloudEQ, I've worked with two of the leaders for 25 years off and on in the space, out of Fortune 500 companies and the CIOs and managing directors of different organizations. So those two I knew. My sales leader I've known for 5 years, 7 years. Our MD in India I was working with for 10 years on a number of other projects, and went and said, you got the right drive, you got the right attitude, you got the right delivery. You're the guy we want to lead this organization in India. So it really came with a lot of people that I already knew, and we could share each other's expectations pretty easily. But it became, it's a true friendship with all of the leadership team, and we hope with the entire organization to, like I said, you want to work with people that are like and trust.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's not always the case.
Certainly true.
No, it's actually refreshing to hear you say what you're saying. So, yes. How much of your organization is virtual?
Interestingly enough, when I started cloudEQ, right, we went around and said, I was working with people that were all over the U.S. and delivering everything to clients as a consulting company, and then we formed cloudEQ. Well, I took all of those same people and moved them into cloudEQ, and I think we were in 11 or 12, 13 states, right?
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
We don't have a physical presence where everybody comes together because they are so diversified across the U.S. When we started the UK branch that's all virtual as well. India is the only place where we have, really a dedicated office that people go into, and we built out fit for purpose. But in India, we have a number of virtual staff as well, right? So I mean, obviously the world changed during COVID, and when we first opened our offices in India, we signed the lease, we got ready to go, we onboarded the team, we're all ready to go. COVID hits, got to pay for a lease for 2 years with nobody in the office. Right? So to fast forward 2 years, we changed offices and went from, I don't remember what it was, 3,000 square feet to 20, and we're about to go to 40,000 square feet in India in the bigger office. But it's all fit for purpose. We have all kinds of different technologies and skills, but right there in the center of the office is the lunchroom or the playroom, right? So we try to get everybody to come and collectively come together. I go to India several times a year, and every time I go to India, we go and find a charitable organization to spend time at as a company, and we try to do that everywhere we go across the globe.
So being I want just to follow, primarily a virtual office and having the kind of really robust, intentional culture you have, what have you found that's been really important, imperative virtually to keep that culture going? This is the $64,000 question.
Yeah.
Right here.
I think there's a couple of things. One is that immediately comes to mind is shared values, right? So, we established the values of the company, and, some of that has to do with, respect and diversity and saying what you mean and doing what you say, right? Being nimble and being flexible, being focused, right? So we all have a common shared set of values. And because when we started, I knew all of these people, it became pretty easy to kind of put those shared values together as a team. But we also, the whole empathy portion or emotional quotient, we contribute to charitable organizations as a team. We have goals to contribute to charitable organizations as a team and as individuals. And, one of the things that, there's three pillars, right, in the company, right? One is go make more money, grow clients, go do the standard stuff you would find. The second is, deliver excellence, customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction. And the third is really around culture, right? And culture breaks down into three components for us: diversity, sustainability, because we want to try to leave the world a better place than where we found it. And then the third is what we call community works, which is giving back to the community. And we give back to the community. We ask people to go out into the community and give back to their community. This is not, let's go find Sean's favorite charity and make sure we give $50, right? This is where you live, give where you live, go out in go serve meals or help the blind or feed the starving children or go to Ronald McDonald House Charity, whatever makes you happy, what's important to you. Because if it's important to you, then you'll do it. And by consequence, it's important to us. We ask, we don't mandate, but we ask that they wear a cloudEQ t-shirt, take a picture. And we do that for a couple of reasons. One, the press doesn't hurt us, but that's not the main reason we're doing it. We do it because organizations who are our size, and we're about, a little over 400 people, right? We're not gargantuan in size, but organizations that are our size can also give back to communities. They can represent. And by wearing the shirt, giving back, doing that, we post the the pictures of what we do as individuals as well as what we do as an organization to encourage other companies to do the same. Because we're all in IT, we make a decent living, and we owe it to society to give back.
That's fantastic. I want to ask a specific question around that. Are people doing this on their own time, or is this part of their work life?
I'd say yes and no, right? So we ask people to do whatever it is they're normally doing to give back and contribute and on their own time. But we do give them a couple of days off a year.
Okay.
So you get 2 days off a year to go and work at some charity, some philanthropic organization, something you feel good about. Like I said, whether that's the charity for the blind or an orphanage or petting dogs or whatever makes you happy. We want to give you that time to go do that.
Thank you. Yeah. I know a lot of the organizations we work with struggle with, well, how do I approach this giving back piece? And it's so valuable and enriching to people.
Yeah, I've written a couple of articles on how to do that, how to put that in. I think they're on LinkedIn or Forbes Technology Council or something, but it's really not that hard. It does cost money, right? Because you're giving up a day's worth of whatever, but it's, like I said, it's a debt we owe society for the lifestyles that we live in better than average income.
Yes.
You mentioned those articles that you wrote that are out there. That's actually how I found you.
Great.
I read one of those articles. I thought, okay, this really resonates with me and with, I know, a lot of our listeners. And just wanted to learn more about you and the company, and here you are. So
great.
Now you also mentioned, I mentioned the high scores and the diversity score you mentioned already. You talked a little bit about, but also the gender score. Again, that's an area where I know a lot of our listeners have struggled, and I even think particularly in IT, which it's changing, but it has historically been male dominated. What are you doing to get those kind of results? What are you doing to shake things up?
Well, I mean, we try to recruit off of your traditional places, right? But we've also done recruiting engagements or conferences or what have you for women in IT. You can find all of the men you want to find in IT all day long. Women tend to be, and I realize this is a broad generalization, so Patsy, no offense, but women tend to be more empathetic than men do. They just do, right? Not all, but as a general rule, they tend to be more empathetic. So, we have been incredibly fortunate with the women that work at cloudEQ and who want to be here and have stayed. We've got really some true superstars. Some are in tech roles, other in project management roles, relationship, leadership. We've got them kind of across the board, and I think it makes for a much better company. But I think engaging at some of the conferences and some of the seminars and things that people could put together, I think it's unfortunate that when we go to recruit, we will find 37 resumes for men, right, and 0 for women. And a lot of the companies that profess to have women who are looking for jobs in IT and really smart tech women and really smart relationship and sales and all of that, they immediately say, oh, come to the conference, spend $10,000. Now you can interview a bunch of people. We make it harder actually to hire women because they're just not as available to us. We post, but you have to actually go out and do things that are overt to get the candidates that we're looking for.
Yeah. So thank you. A couple of years ago, I remember, I'm trying to remember now who it was, but I was watching a diversity, gender equity expert talking about, it's fantastic to go out and be intentional to find new candidates, diverse candidates. And you also have to ready the organization, especially if the organization is particularly dominated by one, again, one gender, one ethnicity. So how have you had to do that? I mean, again, you're in a male-dominated industry, so you go out, you intentionally find strong women in the industry. How do you ready have you had to ready the organization, or has it just been, it's just seemed to work?
Well, I think so you're right. You have to be intentional, and there is some readying of the organization. I think for us, it's been fairly organic and easy to do because we started out with a number of women in the environment. So it became easier, already in leadership positions, already running things, already, technically very astute and adept. And we are always going to hire the best candidate, right? It just may take longer to find the best candidate. That's okay, but we're going to hire the best candidate. But as far as readying the organization, we have a pretty robust training program around DEI. We talked about, culture. Quite honestly, there's a lot more readily accessible women in IT in India than there are in the US. It's a much more accepted engineering practice. But there's plenty in the US as well. So we make sure that we go through, DEI training and sensitivity training and all of the training one would expect to have. All of the sexual harassment training, which is relatively required in some states, but not in others. We've made it a standard across all of our organization, whether it's required by the state or not, right? We want to have everybody play by the same rules, regardless of where you happen to live in the world.
Wow, that's fantastic. Sean, since it's a frustrated CEO, what frustrates you? What keeps you up at night? And what do you do about it?
Well, there's several things, right? I mean, I think as a CEO, the one thing you clearly want is revenue, right? You want more clients, you want more revenue. We also want to get how we do business, which is different, out to the client base, right? So we want to ensure that they understand how we do business and how we can mesh with them. It's an easy thing to say. It's not an easy thing to do. And we do it. So, everybody says, oh, they care about you and they want you to, they care about their clients. But we actually do. So that's one, always looking at, more clients, more revenue, lets us grow and offer more solutions. I always worry about the 400 plus people in the organization, and, they depend on the company to, put food on the table, right?
Sure.
And if we make bad decisions, then they can't put food on their table, right? That's not a good place for anybody to be. And we just want to make sure that there's always an opportunity to grow and learn and diversify our portfolio so that we can keep, for me personally, keep the 400 plus people employed, right? And doing good work.
Yeah, that's great. I was consulting in an organization where they were going to the cloud. So I guess it's the entry into from the physical servers and the way they had been doing things. And being there with them, clearly it was scary. And how do you work with that and with clients who literally don't know what they don't know.
Well,
And they really have to trust you.
yeah, I don't want to trivialize the effort to move to the cloud, right? It is a significant technological effort to get there.
Yes.
However, the hardest part is well, again, it's not the technology, because most companies are virtualized. Most companies have most of the stuff they need. It is a cultural and process change more than anything else, and that is always, when you deal with big programs, that is always the difficulty, is getting buy-in and acceptance and all of that around where you're going, because the game changes completely, and you have to have either an organization that is willing to change with it, or ready to be educated on how they could be willing to change with it.
Yeah. So change management.
It's huge. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
So that's where empathy comes in to play.
Yeah.
That's where knowing your clients come into play, because I imagine every client, just like every employee, is different in terms of what comes up for them. How do you support? I know you talk a lot about training, but what do you see with your employees, or you as the CEO, your employees need from you to kind of just normalize that process, that it's not a straight trajectory?
Well, yes. I mean, I would say that the process of moving to the cloud varies by company and level of maturity as to where they are, right? The rules really don't change much, right? You can lift and shift your technology from one place to another. You can build the Taj Mahal and move into the Taj Mahal. Going back to lift and shift, you can get there and then transform the whole process. But do you have, DevOps and observability and FinOps and governance and ownership and all of those things? And every company's at varying degrees of maturity around that space. So we've been doing this a while. So we get where people are, and in some cases, some companies aren't ready for levels of maturity that are much higher in certain areas, right? So you have to figure out where the baby steps that are absolutely mandatory, and then which ones you can kind of build on and go through that process.
Yeah. Wow.
Sean, I had one more question on sustainability. I was actually surprised. I'm surprised that Lev didn't dig into the sustainability. That's an area of passion for him and his son Abe, who was actually on a number of episodes ago, has a B Corp. So sustainability, how do you approach that? And then I'm curious too, sustainability and the community engagement. Were these values that come from Sean Barker that you then made sure were embedded into the organization, or as you've worked and built this organization, have you heard from employees these are important to us, and therefore you've built an organization that can support that? And I mean, like, where did it come from? And then specifically, since you've talked about already the community engagement, talk about the sustainability.
Sure.
And maybe it's a yes and it leadership and the employees, right? I don't know. You tell me.
I would say yes and, right? These were clearly, they were important values to me. However, having worked in global companies, it's unfortunate, but we don't see sustainability being important in the U.S., right? Some do, some don't. But if you go to Europe or if you go to Asia, something as simple as opening your hotel room and having to put your key card in to a slot to turn the lights on, and then when you leave the hotel room, pulling it out, reduces the energy consumption. You see those all over Europe and Asia. You do not see them in the US. We just don't do that, right? Much like Community Works is a debt we owe society, I think sustainability is a debt we owe our children and grandchildren through the process. Unfortunately, what business is, and we have to travel, right? We have to have offices. We have to have people commute to offices in some cases. So we're going to add to the carbon footprint, but we try to minimize it as much as possible, right? Carpools, 3 days a week in the office, not 5. We try to live in Leeds buildings where we do anything in the U.S. If we have because we don't have an office, the spaces we go to are community kinds of community shared office space. Should we need office space? So we try to minimize the footprint as much as we can, and then what we cannot minimize, we offset, right? So, and there are lots of companies, that do offset. We certainly can't afford to be the Apple, right, where you can get 100% renewable energy because you've got solar panels all over the place. But we can do what we could do in offsets, where I think last year we invested our offsets into a solar farm in India. So where we do business, investing the offsets there to help them build out a solar farm to reduce the reliance on fossil fuel, and go about things that way. When we first started down this path, we engaged with a firm, a woman-owned firm, to do our analysis and determine what our footprint was to begin with, and work to offset that based on scope 1, 2, and 3 of how you measure these things. And we went through, we figured out what it was, we measured every month, we get to the quarter, we understand what it is. And then, as we grew pretty quickly. So what we're having to do is reset our baseline, because I think we had less than 100 people and it was the middle of COVID. So our baseline is in error, as it were. Now we have over 400 and 40,000 square feet of office space. But we're going to reset our baseline, but we will continue to measure it on a per employee basis around the globe. But it's important to us.
Thank you.
Wow, that's great. Sean, can you talk a little bit about, I don't know, I think for a lot of global companies, and it's frustration and fear mixed together, and I'm talking about AI. Is AI going to impact your business and the way people transition to the cloud or use the cloud?
Yes, it is. Now, AI is coming through, but we've been talking about AI for a gazillion years, right? AI, ML, all of that sort of stuff, and a lot of it is you pull a bunch of data, you tell it what to do, and therefore it does what you told it what to do. That's not really artificial intelligence. To a certain extent, it's maturing through the process, but we use AI in several of our products / platforms to render algorithms that can provide better solutions. So AI will permeate everything we do and help us make better decisions. I will say that ChatGPT is wonderful, but it's just what it is, right? It can write a nice letter and it can answer some questions. And I think where you're going to see what's going to be interesting is how AI takes over, the search space, the algorithm space, gets smarter over time. The more it's used, the smarter it will get. Mm-hmm. We certainly will have competing platforms and specialized platforms around AI. But those are going to take, as we go, 3-4 years to mature into where we want them to be, and where they can actually take over components of logic and process that doesn't require human intervention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah.
So looking at our time, is it any other questions for Sean from the CEO perspective before we round third, head home, and get practical?
I do.
Go for it.
Sean, you're in multiple time zones, and you're the CEO. And I'm sure for, again, our listeners, they'd like to know, I mean, how do you maintain a balance? How do you stay healthy and sustainable yourself? Are you working, 4 a.m. in, one country, and how do you pull this off? Because you seem to be doing really well with it.
First of all, yes, I do work a lot of hours, but it's also because I truly love what I do. So I get up very early in the morning so I can talk to the UK and I can talk to India before the US gets out of bed, right? And then I can spend my time, on the US and with the leadership team, some of the leadership team that's in the US, right? The trick for, time zones and gallivanting across the globe sort of thing is, if the sun's up, you're up, right? If the sun goes down, go to bed. And you can adjust some of your timing, as you are in throughout the globe. It's a lot of work, but it is a labor of love for me.
Got it.
That's a good answer.
Well, if I can add to that just a second, I'm also incredibly blessed with the team that I have, who loves to do what they do and contribute overall. So I don't want you to think it's just me. It's not just me.
Sure.
And I tell people all the time, I may get up on a Saturday morning and send you a message or send you a Teams message or what have you. If it's urgent on the weekend, I will call you, right? If it's got to be done, I will call you. But if you get an email from me or a Teams message or whatever, I will start out with, this is for Monday, right? Because it goes into my head. I just have to get it out. Otherwise, I'll lose it. But I know who to get it to and park it there. And that way, Monday I can follow up on it.
That's great. I have one other add-on to that, and I know we're going to wrap. So you read a lot about that employees just work more when they're hybrid than they did in the days when we were all together in an office.
Yep.
And you're somehow winning all these awards and having that be okay, having that be healthy, maybe because people love working for the company and they love the culture and they love the clients. But is there anything you want to say to the other leaders listening that might clarify that or help manage that? Because some people just wouldn't maintain their balance. They might work till midnight.
Mm-hmm. And some people don't, right? That's just the fact of life, right? But we will, I will tell people, you need to stop and go to bed. You need to stop doing this. It will be here tomorrow. I think to encourage, people to take vacation. I think to encourage people to find a work-life balance. The expectations I put on myself may be different than the expectations that somebody else puts on themselves. I think if you create boundaries like, I'm not going to bother you on a weekend or on a holiday. And if you get a message, you don't have to feel the pressure that you have to deal with that right now, unless, there's plenty of times to work 18 hours a day in the middle of a project to do something, to get a deliverable. Mm-hmm. I promise they'll make, everybody will make it up with putting in the effort. But if you can encourage boundaries for people and make sure that they're staying healthy and they're contributing, that's what I would encourage others to do.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Good. All right. Is it time to get practical?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I think so. Okay, so this is the part, Sean and listener, where we try to come up with some practical things, practical steps that a leader can take to, I think in this case, build an award-winning, culture-focused business. So Sean, we'll give you the opportunity to go first if you'd like. What are two or three suggestions you have for a leader for what they can do starting today, starting tomorrow, to make progress in these areas?
Well, I think certainly there's 100 things that one can do, right? I do think if you don't already have them, which you probably do, right? Mission, vision, values, goals, right? Let's assume you have them. Validate them. Go back and make sure that they align with what it is you truly want to achieve. The goals of more clients, more revenue, more expansion, those are all lovely. And if you're a leader who's in it solely for, if money is your yardstick, that is not a good yardstick, right? Because you could make $1 billion and be miserable, right? If your degree of misery may be in question, but at least you got $1 billion. But really, it's about what are you doing as an individual or as a company to have a culture, a strong culture. You'll be much happier where you work with a strong culture. So your mission and your vision and your values are, the three most important things that will then drive your culture. And when you go to create them, if you don't already have them, or to review them, if you do already have them, get your leadership team involved and make sure they are the people who not only help you craft this, but then they have ownership of it, right? There'll be plenty of time to create goals, but mission, vision, and values will drive culture, and the culture will drive the goals.
That was awesome. And
Excellent. Yes.
Yeah, since it's a podcast, Patsy, people couldn't see you clapping, but
I
Patsy,
know, that's all right. Sean can, so.
Patsy was clapping here. Patsy, since I mentioned your name, you want to go next?
Sure. I was really touched by understanding that there's culture and there's culture. So we all grow up with histories and environments that shape the way we live.
Yep.
And then we work in organizations that support that, but not all of us, actually none of us, come to an organization with the same culture, i.e. our histories. So it's honoring our historical or our work culture as we build a work culture. So I was really struck by that because that often gets overlooked. And to add what you were just saying, Sean, is you've talked a lot about shared values, not just having values. So shared values, saying what you mean and doing what you say. Simply said, challenge to do. So I appreciated both of those.
Yeah. Would you like to go?
Sure. I love the notion of encouraging healthy debate and leaning on the respectful part of that. Respect perhaps as a core value. So many leaders we work with are uncertain about that or shy away from that or perhaps see that as not healthy. It's absolutely essential if you're going to make the right decisions. So I love that. Really living and working from your core values. That is, again, a constant growth opportunity and challenge. So I appreciate that a lot. Always working to hire the best candidate, perhaps regardless of what they look like or what country they come from or what, language. Is there a native language, et cetera? Just hiring the best candidate. And I really, I'll close with this one, encourage your people to create some boundaries and, look at balancing their life so that they're sustainable and their families are sustainable.
Yeah.
This is not the only thing that matters in life, but it matters. So the fact that you lead that way, I think, says more than you can speak about it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yep. All right, I'll add a couple, and then we'll see if anybody wants to add one last one. Okay, so I thought this was really eloquent. Community engagement is a debt you owe to society, and sustainability is a debt you owe to your children and grandchildren. I thought, like, that's mic drop moment. So I thought that needed to be on there. I love just the point you were making. Patsy, it was great that you dug into the virtual aspect of cloudEQ, because I think that shatters a myth that exists today. You really can have an A+ culture in a virtual environment. In a virtual world, it does come back to those shared values and being intentional. But that's one thing that I think it's one of the whether it's a myth or a block that a mental block that CEOs and leaders have, is that, wow, it was so much easier when we were all in one place. Well, even back when everybody was in all in one place, there were still crappy cultures. So you just need to be intentional about it, and you can do it. Gosh, there were so many more. One of the themes, the threads that runs through today is empathy is great for business. It's great for culture. It's great for recruiting in 2023. As a leader, get good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's, there's enough data out there that says that's what today's generation is looking for in their leader. And you scored 95 out of 100. Probably not just from empathy, but I'm sure that factors into it. And then maybe the last one I'll say is make your people feel valued, happy, and give them a sense of purpose. Do that, and they'll take care of customer. They'll take care of everything else for you. So there were more, but I'm just trying to keep it short. Sean, Patsy, Lev, any more that you want to add that we left off?
Oh, I have to add one more. It's an evolution that you frequently are going to need to reset.
Yep.
And that's all based on employee input. Yeah. So
I do. One more thing about the leadership team. You and healthy debate. You want people who are willing to disagree with you and who are passionate about their positions. If you are the CEO and you surround yourself with a bunch of people who say whatever you want, boss, then you're going to get exactly what you want, but it may not be the right thing, right? So people that are willing to disagree with you is actually a good thing.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Sean, if someone is interested in getting in touch with you, either pick your brain as CEO, as the purveyor of a great culture, or if someone is interested in contacting cloudEQ, what's the best way?
You can if you want to contact cloudEQ, go to the website or LinkedIn and contact us there. If you want to contact me, feel free to go to LinkedIn. You go to cloudEQ. My name's right there, or look me up, Sean C. Barker. I'm not hiding anywhere, so send me a message and we'll have a conversation.
Well, if I can get in touch with you, then I would think anybody can. I get ignored by most people. So, Sean, thank you so much for sitting with us for this episode and for agreeing to come back for our next episode. So that's a little teaser for our listener. Make sure that you tune into our next episode in a couple of weeks, where we put Sean back on the hot seat to talk about cloud migration and try to answer the questions and issues keeping you awake at night in that realm. Lev and Patsy, thank you so much for another great episode.
Thank you.
Informative. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you. And we will, listener, you can find this episode, Let's Get Practical, on our website at thefrustratedceo.com. And please subscribe. And you can reach out to Patsy, Lev, and I as well on LinkedIn if you are interested in connecting with us, learning more about how we might help you, or if you're interested in being a future guest on a future episode of the show. So thank you again for listening, and we will see you again next time on the Frustrated CEO Podcast.